Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular City Council agenda, June 20th. It is 7:05. Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin. If we can all please remain standing for a moment of silence for our first responders and military members. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Roth.
Present.
Councilmember Mann.
Present.
Councilmember Soto.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Present.
Mayor Moran.
Present.
For the record, all council members, mayor and mayor pro temp are in attendance.
All right, so closed session announcements. Direction was given to staff on both items. Anything else? Council, are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, moving forward. Citizen comments. This section of the agenda allows members of the public to address the City Council on any item not on the agenda and items on the agenda. If you wish to speak on an item on the agenda, please state the item number. Members of the public, when recognized by the mayor, should come forward to the lectern and identify themselves. Comments are normally limited to 3 minutes. In accordance with state open meeting laws, no action will be taken by the City Council this evening. Is there any?
Mr. Mayor, before we begin, may I ask a question on this, the way this is now phrased? I noticed there's a slight change and says, this section of the agenda allows the members of the public to address the City Council on items not on the agenda and items on the agenda. Does that mean that when items are come up, we're no longer going to allow comments?
I can have either Mr. Lopez or legal provide feedback.
So, Mayor, I can start off. One of the things that we noticed is sometimes there will be a gentle reminder that's provided to whoever's leading the meeting, whether it be the mayor, mayor pro tem. And I'm not aware of any instance where we have forgotten to take public comment, but this was a safeguard instituted just to ensure that there's an opportunity for members of the public to comment on that, should there be an instance in the future where the mayor doesn't ask for public comment on that item in the future.
But however, Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, we will allow public comment as each item is brought up. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
One more clarification on that item. If they chose to come up during the citizens' comments at the start of the meeting, are they allowed as the item comes presented? Will they also be allowed to speak another 3 minutes? Are we turning them away?
My understanding is that they only get one opportunity, whether it's before or during the item, but legal can expand on that.
Yeah, it's one opportunity to speak per item. The rules on that don't change, but it is at the discretion of council to always allow people to speak more than what the policy is, but it has to be made in that moment. And if you do allow someone to speak twice or over their 3 minutes, then you have to allow everyone else to do so as well.
Thank you. No further comment.
Anyone else? All right. Next, we have announcements and reports. Well, I'm sorry. Is there any citizen comments on the phone?
Yes,
Can you please state your name for the record?
Ana Maria.
Okay. Can you speak a little bit louder so we can hear you? Go ahead,
Ana
please.
María.
Go ahead.
Hola, llamo porque me dijeron que la señora que quería ser secretaria municipal no ha estado redactando las actas de las reuniones del Consejo Municipal a propósito. para que los políticos puedan salirse con la suya con más actividades ilegales. También me informé que este tipo de comportamiento ha estado ocurriendo desde el momento en que el señor Rodrigo Espinosa estaba en el Consejo Municipal. Como se señaló en las investigaciones del gran jurado, a Leti se le pagó para ser secretaria municipal y abusó de su cargo electo para facilitar y ocultar actividades ilegales. También ha estado involucrada en censurar al público al crear y mantener grupos cerrados de Facebook donde se discuten los asuntos de la ciudad. A ella también se le ha estado pagando. Nosotros como ciudadanos exigimos que el dinero que se le pagó sea devuelto a la ciudad y que la ciudad lleve a cabo una investigación de estas alegaciones. Ella está renunciando para que no rinda cuentas, pero responsabilizarla es exactamente lo que mis vecinos y nosotros planeamos hacer. Gracias.
Thank you for that. Is there any additional comments on the phone? Hearing none, is there any public comments here in the chamber?
Mr. Mayor, may we get a translation on that comment, please? No? Well, somebody needs to. Well, somebody should. I mean, we just want to make sure we.
Well, probably, I think the best thing if they can email us, and then we can probably translate it to be accurate, because it was a little too long and I wasn't able to catch everything. I'm sorry?
Can you give the public a gist of what she was saying, and then we can have the email word for word at the next time so that we're being fair?
So this is just going to be my interpretation, a little bit of what I was able to catch, not necessarily the specific, accurate translation. There was a concern in regards to someone not doing their job as far as keeping records. And then also there was a mention in regards to Supervisor Rodrigo Espinosa for an investigation that was done years ago, where there were certain findings, and there was a mention about making sure, I believe she said, to make sure that someone was returning money that was paid, but I wasn't sure who they were referring to. And that hopefully her concerns that she mentioned were taken seriously and something was done about it. But if we can get the full text, will be much better.
Thank you.
Next, we have announcements and reports. City staff announcements and reports.
We do have one member of the management team, Mayor. I know it's not on the agenda, but we do have Robert Nguyen from Merced County Fire Department to just provide an introduction of himself and introduce himself to the City Council, Mayor.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Last time, unfortunately, I was on a call when my battalion chief came to introduce me, and I thought that it would be really formal for me to introduce myself to the council as well as to the public and the city of Livingston. My name is Robert Nguyen. I'm 34 years old. I'm a proud and grateful husband and father. I'm a dedicated public servant. I have 8 years in the fire service. I recently transferred from Napa County to Merced County, and I'm here to serve. I believe it is very important to know the morals and values of the people that serve your community, and I want to share mine with you. Commitment, transparency, vulnerability, accountability, stability, and consistency. I live by these both in my personal and professional life, and I display these morals and values through action every day. And this is my promise to you, as well as the city and as well as the state of California, the oath. As a member of the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, it is my duty to safeguard lives and property, to be honest in thought and deed in both my personal and professional life. I will be exemplary in obeying the laws of the land and the regulations of my department. I will never act officiously or promote personal feelings, prejudice, animosities, or friendships to influence my decisions. I recognize the badge of this position as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public service. I will constantly strive to achieve these objectives and ideas, dedicating myself to my chosen profession within the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. Thank you for this formal introduction. Please have a good night.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Well, I just want to say welcome, and I know that we had an opportunity to briefly conversate the last couple of weeks at the park.
Yes, sir.
Music at the park. It's the first time that I see someone in your position playing football with someone at the park, which was really, really nice to see, you know, and how willing to engage you are. And that is something that I do appreciate, and I'm sure that the members in our community really appreciate seeing you out there. I know I heard some stories, and I know that you will be sharing some stories later to this council and to the community about all the different things that you want to do. And I think with your introduction, you already gave a great expectation of some of the things that you want to be able to do for our community. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else? Next, we have city manager announcements and reports.
Nothing for me today, Mayor. Thank you.
Next, we have council members, announcements or reports. Mr. Mann?
Nothing to report this time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roth?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On June 13th, I attended the Planning Commission meeting. There was only one thing that the Planning Commission really had concern about, and that was it was not streaming live. I did reach out to Chris, and I think we have a solution. So that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Soto?
Actually, I just had a couple for the city manager. Just wanted some follow-up. I did have a question from a member of the public on the last, it was the budget presentation, and it was specifically on Anthony Chavarria's presentation in regards to the sidewalks. So if there could have been the question was there another way that we could have allocated $2.1 million on a project, and how is that process figured out between staff and management?
Mr. Lopez, is that something you want to, or?
Yes, so Mayor, however you would prefer me to answer the question, I can do it now or once the council members have provided their input.
So that specific subject matter is not agendized, and we really can't talk about it right now. If you want to ask for it to be agendized, for it to be discussed, and for him to report on it. But when the city staff announcements and reports and manager reports are presented, you can ask questions about things that they present on as part of their report. But because the city manager didn't report on anything, there's no forum for bringing up new subject matter under the Brown Act. So potentially under the, later when we do new items for future agendas, that would be the appropriate place for that.
So I'll move those two questions to future. The June LAFCO meeting was canceled. I did attend the town hall last month, I believe, in Merced, or was that a while back? Again, I did attend the Cal Cities dinner, which was hosted in Modesto. They did present, it was our quarterly meeting. It was a really nice venue to have and host and have our guest speaker as Ali Taj, the president of the League of California Cities. They went over old business, new business, and brought before us a couple of the legislation that is coming up on some of the ballot measures for us to review, and I'll give those to council if they didn't already pick up their copy at the dinner. I did attend the MCAG meeting last week and the Planning Commission. I also wanted to let people know that this Friday we are, well, not we, well, we, because I'm part of the Livingston High School Alumni Committee. They are having the enchilada dinner, so those of us that really are passionate about our schools, or especially our high school, and that have graduated from Livingston High, they are hosting a enchilada dinner at the VFW Hall this Friday. So hopefully the community has bought some tickets. If you have not, then reach out to a committee member. I am one. Also, the 4th is coming up, so we may or may not have a meeting prior to that. So this is my time to encourage you to come out to the Merced County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Mercado Night, which is going to be July 6th. We have over 80 vendors. We're also having live entertainment. Gives an opportunity for people in Livingston to come and find out the resources that we have for small businesses and some economic development. So that will be held on July 6th. We are also honoring all veterans, first responders. So this is invitation for those of you that are listening that are veterans, whether it was service abroad or if you're a member of the American Legion, first responders, fires, police. We are honoring you that night. We will have a space for you to sit and be recognized, as well as a dinner provided to you. So please come out. It will be a very warm reception to have everybody there and honoring you for our Independence Day event on July 6th. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the Merced County Mosquito Abatement meeting today. I was able to relay some concerns from folks regarding increase in mosquitoes throughout the community. Also, some of the reports indicated that the mosquitoes were more around our storm drain basins. I did inquire about that, and I was told that they spray our storm drain basins once a month, mosquito abatement. However, we need extra service. The Public Works or the city needs to go ahead and fill out a form. They can come out and do some extra service. So, yes, we do have extra mosquitoes. We do have mosquitoes because weather's starting to get warm. So I would like to ask that our staff fill out some forms so we can get our parks sprayed a little extra. That way, they will come out. There's no charge. So, but they need to have some sort of form filled out so they can contact somebody and says, we did this, here's how we can help, so. Okay?
Anthony, I think I see you taking notes back there. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They know the procedure. I just got out at 5 o'clock, so I didn't get a chance to talk to anybody about it. And then also we approved the annual audit. We paid some bills, and then we adjourned. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect, thank you. In regards to some of the things that I attended, I also attended the division meeting and dinner. This last time it was in Modesto. There were some things that were in the agenda and they were taken care of at that meeting. I also volunteer at the CTA marathon that took place in Merced about a week and a half ago, and it was specifically to fundraise funds to support and help the community of Planada, since Planada was one of the communities that were barely highly devastated during the storms. So there was a lot of community members that participated. There was some elected officials, and it's the first time that I saw them running. At least they were not running from anything. They were just jogging, so that was good. Music in the Park. Hopefully, most of you had an opportunity to attend Music in the Park. Yesterday was the last day for Music in the Park. I believe it was 6 weeks. Great attendance. Great community event. There was people that were visiting our city from Merced, from Atwater, from Winton. There was just some of the people that I got a chance to talk to yesterday, and they really liked Music in the Park, and it was great weather. Some of them expressed a wish that they knew about it earlier. So, we told them just make sure you come back at least mid-May of 24 when the next program will start. Swimming pool. So the swimming lessons have started, and a couple of weeks ago? Yesterday. Okay. And so if you want more information about the swimming program, please contact the Recreation Department. It's a program that is in the process of fine-tuning a few things here and there. So, but if you need more information, just contact the Recreation Department. Last week I had an opportunity to meet with the representative for Senator Padilla's office from Fresno. She did come over to the city of Livingston, and we had an opportunity to share some of the needs that we have in the community, just to see what are some of the things that their office can do to help us work on some of our projects, which primarily have to do with funding. So thank you to the Senator Padilla's Fresno office for making the time and coming to the city of Livingston. Also on the 15th, I attended the MCAG meeting. One of the items that was in the agenda at that time is the JPA, which we are talking about at our council meeting tonight. And on Friday, I was in Sacramento. I had a meeting with the staff office, with the office staff from the office of Assembly Member Esmeralda Soria, and just following up on a couple of projects that we're working on, just continuing to work on funding opportunities. Hopefully we can see some results soon. And I also attended the Planning Commission, the last Planning Commission meeting. Also, we are continuing to work on the Sister Cities program. At this time, we are currently working with the city of Zapotlanejo, which we are hoping, if everything goes well and as planned, there's going to be a committee from the city of Zapotlanejo in Jalisco, which they will be visiting our community later, towards the end of the month of July. But we'll keep you posted on once more accurate information once we have an agenda for that visit. And we probably, or maybe won't be having another meeting before the 4th of July, so I just want to remind everyone to be safe out there, and to remember that there are additional fees that have changed for the city of Livingston. If PD has knowledge of fireworks or of illegal fireworks being used within the city limits, potentially the host or the homeowner will be responsible for a fine, a specific fine in regards to illegal fireworks. But if you need more information, please contact City Hall or the police department at the non-emergency number. And just be safe and happy 4th of July. And we'll see you out there at the celebration of the 4th of July. And make sure that you reinforce your fences if you have pets. Keep your dogs inside the house to make sure they don't escape, and that way they're safe as well. And that's it as far as my report. Next, we have the consent agenda. Items on the consent calendar.
Yeah. Oh, no, there's no PowerPoint presentation, but there's the receive and file from the treasurer. Yes.
Yes, next we have the consent agenda. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine or non-controversial and will be enacted by one vote unless separate action is requested by the city manager or city council member. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the city council or city manager request that specific items be removed. Council, what is your desire in regards to consent agenda items?
Mr. Mayor, if there's no comments, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
So we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Roth. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Roth?
Yes.
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Councilmember Soto?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra?
Yes.
Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we have public hearings. Item number 7, resolution approving conditional use permit number 2023-01 and resolution approving site plan and design review application number 2023-01 to develop a 2-story, 3,339 square foot townhouse triplex and with a 7-space parking lot in the downtown commercial DTC zoning district on property located at 1222 B Street, Livingston, California, APN number 024-123-003. Miguel?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, city staff, members of the public. Miguel Galvez, contract planner with the city of Livingston. Again, the item before you this evening is consideration of use permit application 2023-1 and site plan design review application 2023-1. A request to develop a townhouse triplex by Mr. Simran Singh. I have a PowerPoint presentation here. The subject property is located on the south side of B Street between 1st and 2nd Street. It's highlighted in yellow. The property is currently vacant. It's surrounded by single-family development on the west, on the south, on the east side of the property. On the north side of the property, across B Street, there is a combination of single-family homes, vacant property, and commercial development. A little close-up of the property of the subject site. As I mentioned, the property is vacant along the south side. There's a developed alleyway. On the east, there's a single-family home and accessory buildings. On the west, there's another single-family home. The property itself does have some street improvements. There's a sidewalk, there's a curb entrance. There's some utility lines, which I'll get to. There's no poles on the property, but they cross the northern part of the property there overhead. In terms of zoning, first I'll go to the general plan on the left. The property is in the downtown commercial zoning district, general plan designation. It also has a downtown commercial zoning district. The property is, you can't see it very clearly, but it's marked by a star there. So it's in the downtown commercial area. The property, as I mentioned, fronts on B Street. It measures 75 feet by 102 feet deep. It's approximately 7,600 feet in size. As I mentioned, full street dedication and frontage improvements have already been provided. Here are some recent pictures of the property. The one on the top is just looking at the property across B Street. The one on the bottom left is the neighboring house to the left, or to the east, and then on the right is the property there on the western. They're both single-family homes. Looking at the property from the alley, when I went out there was some illegal dumping, but that has already been cleared up. Here's a view of the alley on the bottom left, and there's the sidewalk improvements and driveway on B Street looking west there. To talk about the project specifically, the applicant is proposing a two-story, 3,339 square foot townhouse triplex. Each unit will have 2 beds, 2 bathrooms. It will consist of a little over 1,100 square feet of living area. In addition, there will be fenced private open space in the back. It also includes a 7-space parking lot. The parking lot will have 4 of the parking spaces under a carport. One of the spaces will be handicapped, and it will also be under the carport. Access to the parking lot will be only from B Street. There's no access to the alley. The site plan, which is in your agenda port, the triplex is highlighted in yellow there. Again, there are 3 units, they're 2-story. A triplex townhouse is kind of like you have living areas on the first floor and on the second floor, and then each unit is separate, so they have both first and second story. The parking lot is highlighted in blue there. You see the entrance on the left there and the parking spaces. The ones on the north are the ones that are covered by the carport, which I highlighted in a peach color there. Looking a little bit further, toward the middle and the bottom, there's a trash enclosure. It's kind of highlighted outlined in green. And then the back of the properties, each of the backyards will be fenced with a gate to the alley, and those will be for personal use of each of the homes. There's a patio that allows access there, and it'll be covered by the second floor, so there'll be a private alcove, if you will. So there's the site plan. The project has been reviewed by city staff, engineering staff, and the project meets all of the development standards in the downtown commercial zone in terms of building height, setbacks, parking requirements, and things of the like. So staff is supportive of it from that angle. The floor plans, as I mentioned earlier, each building will consist of 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. On the second floor, on the bottom floor, they'll have a living area, a bathroom, and a kitchen area there. Here, the elevations, the color samples are there. These are pretty much modern, standard designs, typical of, and in my opinion, compatible with the development in the neighborhood. Issues, the one issue had to do with the overhead utility lines. City standards currently required that any overhead lines be undergrounded. There's telephone lines, cable, electricity. This came up as a condition of approval from the city engineer, condition of approval number 13. When we deal with these vacant properties that were developed under different standards, it makes it cost prohibitive for them to now be required to, underground the utilities on their property. If all the properties along that street were to do that, that's a different case. But when you do it on a case-by-case basis, it becomes very cost prohibitive to require that the overhead lines be now placed underground at the expense of the property owner. To that issue, staff has proposed an amendment to that condition of approval number 13 to allow some relief to that. Here's a picture of the utility poles along B Street. As I mentioned, there's no utility poles on the property itself, but the lines are overhead. They traverse the property, and making those go underground and then back up is just going to be very cost prohibitive and inefficient in staff's opinion. So staff is recommending that the condition be amended, that per Livingston Municipal Code, the applicant is responsible for removing the utility poles and undergrounding the utility lines within the property street frontage. And I am proposing or adding, as required by the city council policy and/or direction. I know the city council in recent discussions have discussed this as a policy matter for staff to kind of look at, identifying a geographic area where this requirement may not be necessary or required because of cost prohibited items.
Excuse me. So are you saying that you've already made recommendations and worked with the applicant regarding this issue?
Staff is recommending that the condition of approval be amended to recommend that the condition be changed to allow the city council to provide guidance as to whether or not that should be followed through. So,
But since there is no poles on the frontage, there's nothing to underground then? I'm just trying to get a clarification. I'm kind of confused on the way it's worded.
so there are no poles on the property. There are utility lines that are overhead. So the condition would require that those utility lines be placed underground, even though there's no poles there. And so the condition of approval says you're required to do it per whatever city council policy is adopted or enacted whenever the building permit comes into play. Does that respond to your question?
Still confused. So they are going underground in front of their property or not underground in front of their property?
Presently, the utility lines are not underground at this point.
I understand that. But the condition, and I'm just trying to read it the way I'm confused. Does it say that they will underground it or they are not going to underground it? I know what it says, I know we talked about this some time ago. I'm just trying to say, is the applicant already agreed to underground it or not agreed to underground it?
Oh, forgive me.
I know, but they're also saying that it may be cost prohibitive, so if they said it's cost prohibitive, then the project doesn't move forward?
Yes, the applicants are here, and we did talk about this issue with them, and they are concerned about that requirement. This is going to be cost prohibitive for them to have the utilities placed underground.
So
Yeah, so let me
I
provide
just want to make sure that we vote the way I think we're going to vote.
So essentially what Miguel has included here is some flexibility. Had we just been looking strictly at the municipal code as it stands now, they would be required to underground as it's required. So here, I believe that the attorney's office is working on a draft change that would allow for the council to have some flexibility. So this requirement here does allow for that flexibility once it does come to the council.
Okay, so it will come to the council for a modification or?
The city has flexibility now under state laws. So what they need to do before there is an undergrounding, a revision to the current code is to request a variance. Exactly. You are always allowed to approve a variance as long as it aligns with the requirements of variances, and that has to do with public health and safety issues and surrounding properties and the like. And so even though the ordinance requires it, you can always approve a requested variance as long as it meets certain conditions.
So we will, if approved, they will give the variance or the staff the option of giving the flexibility. Is that what we're doing at this time, or is that going to come back? I thought we talked about that, didn't we? And that's why I thought we did that already.
We haven't done it yet, but we have talked about it. But to Christina's point, that variance does exist under state law. So that would just be a mechanism that they would just have to bring forward. And then the council, I do believe, would have to grant that variance on the council side.
Okay, thank you. I got it now. Thank you.
I apologize for the confusion there.
The way I was trying to read it, I was confusing myself, so thank you. Okay. There is, but there is. It's,
With each and every project, we have to look at each project for consistency with the general plan and the zoning ordinance. When it comes to the general plan, as I mentioned, the properties in the downtown commercial zone. It's also covered under the housing element. Under the general plan, we have residential land use objectives. One objective talks about promoting high-quality residential standards and encouraging infill development with flexible designs, and where feasible multifamily development should be located near commercial services. So this is a perfect location. Actually, we complement the property owner to moving forward on developing these vacant lots, these remnant properties, and actually it helps to contribute to meet our affordable housing and multi-housing needs as required by the housing element. In terms of commercial development, being in the downtown area, the commercial zoning does allow for a mixed-use zoning where you have commercial on bottom floors and residential on top, but also recognizes that there's a mix of existing commercial and residential uses in the downtown commercial area. So this project will help develop a vacant lot that is planned for in the downtown commercial that also provides, vitality for the downtown commercial area by allowing, more homes to be built, more customers to come in. So that's another general plan item. As I mentioned, the housing element, there are policies to promote the development of a range of housing types. So this is a townhouse type development. It's multifamily. And so this adds to the mix of housing products that are available in our community from single family to multifamily. And I think the use of this property is relatively small, but they were able to maximize the building potential of it. And so it really maximizes the number of units that are allowed. And encourages the development of people with special needs, including low income. So this housing project will serve to provide housing opportunities to 3 households. So that will also help with our general plan goals. When it comes to zoning and ordinance, the zoning ordinance and CEQA compliance, as I mentioned, the project is the downtown commercial zoning. It meets all of our development standards in that zoning district. When it comes to the Environmental Quality Act, the California Environmental Quality Act, it could be considered exempt under 2 categories: new construction of no more than 4 dwelling units and infill development, and we're going to cite both of those. So the project is considered exempt under CEQA. When it comes to a use permit in the downtown commercial zone, when you're developing multifamily in the downtown commercial zone, a use permit is required. And the use permit really is there to make sure that there's no externalities on neighboring properties, but also there are findings that have to be met, and these findings are listed up here, that the proposed use is adequate in size and shape to accommodate the said use in all yards and spaces in the applicable zoning. Also, that the site proposed is served by streets and highways adequate to carry the quantity of traffic generated by the use. And public facilities are currently adequate to serve the proposed use, and improvements that will be, and conditions that will be met to make sure that the building will meet our standards. The last one is the proposed development is consistent with the general plan. If granted, should be made subject to those conditions necessary to preserve the general welfare. Staff believes that these use permit findings can be met. They're articulated in the agenda report. When it came to the Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission met on 3/14, and they recommended approval of the project to the City Council. There was some discussion at the Commission meeting about responsibility for underground utilities, which falls to the property owner. There was a discussion about the number of water meters needed for the site. Do you need one for landscaping, one for each unit? And so we discussed that as well. There was also questions about which parking spaces were going to be covered, whether the handicap parking were covered, and we discussed that. And there was questions about fire suppression requirements, whether a fire hydrant that's on site is adequate, or whether it be fire sprinklers also that would be required. There was no correspondence that was received, but there was one person from the public that spoke in support of the proposal and was supportive of the city considering some flexibility to the developer for not having to underground those utilities. In conclusion, we have three recommendations. One, conduct a public hearing. Two, adopt the resolution approving conditional use permit number 2023-01, subject to findings and conditions of approval, including the staff report and in the resolutions. And three, adopt the resolution approving site plan design review application 2823-01, subject to the findings and conditions of approval, including the staff report and in the resolution. That concludes my report. Myself and other staff are available to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Galvez. Council, are there any questions? Okay, so I'm going up for public comment. Is there any public comment on the phone in regards to this item? Hearing none, is there any public comment here in the chamber in regards to this item? If you can please state your name for the record.
Mayor, members of the council, my name is Ernie Yoshino, architect for the owners of this project, and just a quick comment. We feel that this is something that's needed in the city. It's within walking distance of commercial, so it's perfect for the apartment project, and we appreciate the city working with us as regard to the overhead line. We are going to underground our utilities to the unit, so whenever that is done, it'd be easy to tie into the new underground services. Other than that, we would appreciate your approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council, are there any questions? So I do have one question, just to be clear and just to make sure that I understand it correctly. So you are doing underground utilities?
From the pole to our units.
Okay, I see.
Just for our units,
Okay.
each unit.
Yes.
We're not going overhead to the apartments.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, is there any additional public comment in the chamber? Okay, bringing it back to the dais. Council, questions, suggestions, recommendations?
Mr. Mayor, all throughout the years, I always advocated for infill projects. If we don't, these projects usually are done by small investors, in subdivisions. And not only this one, but we should help promote other infills. Empty lot serves no purpose other than weeds growing. This right here helps to address some of our housing shortages. And like was stated, within a walking distance of groceries and others, we should be promoting things like that. So I highly think that we should approve this project.
Is that a motion?
Well, yes, it's the motion to adopt both resolutions, approving the conditional use permit and approving the site plan design review.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing at 7:54. So
And, well, you called for motion, but my motion still stands.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'd like to second that.
So motion by Mayor Pro Tem Samra and second by Councilmember Mann. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Roth,
Yes.
Councilmember Mann,
Yes.
Councilmember Soto,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra,
Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we have discussion and potential action items. Item number 8, resolution approving a professional service agreement with Bryant L. Jolly, certified public accountants, and approving an amended contract with Lansall and Langard LLP.
So Mayor, we have Happy Baines, Senior Accountant in the Finance Department, presenting this item.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Temp, members of the council, city staff, and members of the public audience. Happy Baines, Senior Accountant. The item that we will go over today was the professional services agreement and amendment to the audit contract. So a little bit of a background to this item. In February of 2021, council approved a contract with Lansall and Langard LSL, audit of the financial statements for 3 years with 2 optional years. The objective of the audit is obtain a reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an audit report that includes an opinion. PBC, which is a prepared by a client list, was requested by city staff in early spring of 2022, but we didn't get it until January of 2023. So what a PBC list is, it's a preliminary work that's required prior to the start of the actual audit. On May 16th of 2023, city staff received a letter from LSL that the contract price will need to be increased in order for them to do the fiscal year 2021-2022 audit. So the initial contract that city had with LSL was for 21-22, price was $38,920. No amended contracts, no increases to that. Fiscal year 21-22, current contract was $39,698. Amended contract, they're requesting a $68,370 with an increase of around $28,672. And for fiscal year 22-23, current contract is $40,492, amended $57,454 with an increase of around $16,692. Prior to us bringing this recommendation to City Council, staff prepared a request for proposal, also known as the RFP, which was sent out to 6 audit firms to identify options for the city. RFP was due on June 2nd, 2023, and there were no responses received by those 6 audit firms. Brian L. Jolly Public Accountants, which is our old audit firm that we had, we reached out to them to see if they would be willing to do our audit for 21-22, and they were just kind of busy to do the audit, but they did state that they were able to assist us in the time that we needed their help to get the audit done. A few of the items that they're going to kind of assist us with, which would be the GASB 68, GASB 75, GASB 87, our debt services, capital assets, year-end closing of financial records, reconciliation of balance sheet and income statements, and the contract that's in front of you guys is a contract is not to exceed $30,000. And these services will only be used in order to provide year-end closing and audit support services, and also provide help to staff if needed assistance to the new staff. Recommendation action would be to adopt a resolution approving a professional service agreement with Bryant L. Jolly, certified public accountants, in a not to exceed $30,000 for year-end closing and audit support for fiscal year 21-22 as an amendment with LSL for the audit services. Any questions or comments?
Council, questions or comments? I do have one. If you can go back to where it shows the 3 fiscal years, okay, right there. So there was, so I think, I mean, I know the meaning of, or the why behind those requests, but I think, can someone provide an explanation so that not only us, but others watching at home so they can understand why, what happened? I mean, if we had an original contract for 3 years for 38, 39, and 40,000, but then what happened in between to where we're required or we're asked to increase the amount to spend a little bit more, and then also for, and this is just to be able to catch up,
clarification, no, it's fine.
just to
So
finish
in
those
the-
reports, because those are not completed yet.
So in the initial contract the city signed, there is a clause in there that LSL can cancel the contract on their behalf. So they did give us a letter to basically saying, in 30 days, we're going to cancel the contract or basically increase the fees.
And can you expand on why they're asking? I mean, are they just asking, I guess my question is, they're not just asking for us to increase the amount just because, you know, just because they just woke up one day and say, oh, you know, maybe we can increase the amount and, you know, but what is the reason? Are they, is because of the additional work that they need to do to be able to cover, to complete?
No, that wasn't their, I guess their communication with us wasn't that it's the additional work. It's basically saying increase, I guess in one of the emails he put on there is, last year, our rates and costs have gone up about 20%. So that is a factor of them increasing. So basically it's cost on their side as well.
Okay, so it's just an increase on
Increasing cost, yeah.
So, okay. And then, so we still need to finish or to have completed the 21-22.
Yes, so 21-22 is still needed, yes.
Okay. And then eventually, hopefully we'll get to work on the 22-23.
22-23 is about to end of this month, yes. So we'll get started on that as well.
Okay. Thank you. Council, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do have one. Are these audits supposed to be done yearly and completed yearly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Let me expand on that, and I think I have.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead. I want to leave you some.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem. No, that's fine. Go ahead.
To me, I know there's an increase in cost. However, it is also required that we do our audits, because if we don't do the audits, it could affect our bonds, and there's a lot of things that can affect our applications, and it can affect a whole bunch of things. Yeah, I don't like the increase in 28, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do, and if we don't do it, we're in trouble. So I think we should go ahead and move it forward. Thank you.
Council, before I go out to public comments, before I forget. So I'm going to go out to public comment. Is there any public comment in regards to this item on the phone? Hearing none, coming back to the chamber. Any public comment in the chamber? Coming back to the dais. Any additional questions, comments, recommendations, motions?
I will make the motion that we adopt the resolution approving the professional services agreement with Brian Del Jolly CPA and approving amended contract with Lansol and Lungart LLP.
Is there a second?
I'll second Mayor Pro Tem's motion.
So we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Samra and a second by Councilmember Mann. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Roth,
Yes.
Councilmember Mann,
Yes.
Councilmember Soto,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra?
Yes.
Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
And before we move forward, I think it's important, well, I just want to mention something. This is just one example of when we have things that are not done right the first time or on time, then later we end up having to try and catch up, and that goes with experience. So, having staff that have the experience and are aware of different things that need to be done and when, it's very important. Otherwise, we end up, be in the situation that we're in right now. But thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Next item number 9, resolution approving a commitment of permanent local housing allocation funds to the Self-Help Enterprises Livingston B Street project.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have Betsy McGovern Garcia here. I think I messed up your last name, so apologies. She will be providing the overview for item number 9 tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Betsy McGovern Garcia. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development at Self-Help Enterprises, and we are a San Joaquin Valley affordable housing developer nonprofit organization. We've been in existence since 1965, and we have offices in Visalia and Madera. We're before you this evening to request funding from the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Funding Program. The PLHA program, as it's referred to, is a state funding program that is allocating resources from the $75 collection fee that is assessed in the state of California on the recordation of documents. It's sometimes referred to as the permanent housing source and was part of the 12-bill housing package that the governor put through several years ago. The PLHA program is a formula allocation to cities. The first year of funding initiated in 2019, and there's a total of 5 years of funding, so 2019, 20, 21, 22, and 23. The allocation of funds is published annually when the Department of Finance publishes its collections under the program and does the formula calculation of how much each city is receiving. The City of Livingston so far has applied for the first 3 years of funding, which would be the 2019, 20, and 21 funding. We approached you in October of last year, roughly of October of last year, because had the city not put in the application for funding by December, you would have lost the opportunity to utilize the 2019 funds. At that time, we did not have an affordable housing site, and we worked with the city to put in the application to reserve the funds so that if we came forward with a project or another community partner came forward with a project, you would have the funding reserved, and that would be available to provide affordable housing funding for your community. Fortunately, after we did that application, we connected with Livingston Community Health Clinic. They've been a partner of ours for many, many years, and our CEO, Tom Cullishaw, has been saying, we've got to connect with them and partner and do a project. Frequently, we will co-locate affordable housing adjacent to community amenities. So we want to make sure we have sites that are walkable and bikeable and are close to schools and parks and health clinics. And we will frequently locate our housing immediately adjacent to health clinics. One of the social determinants of health is housing. And unfortunately, a lot of our low-income families are unable to access consistent health care and prevention screenings and those types of things that really promote health within their families. And so it's a really good fit for us to pair affordable housing with health services. So we were able to work with them and put in place a purchase agreement for the remnant parcel next to their property on B Street. We are proposing a total of 80 units, an affordable multifamily project. It'll be a combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, so 36 one-bedroom units, 24 two-bedroom units, and 23 bedroom units. All of our communities have a centrally located community building, roughly 3,000 square feet, where we have full-time on-site managers and residential services, and then spaces for the community, so our residents will use the space for birthday parties and community meetings and retirement parties and those types of things. We do currently own and operate Casitas del Sol here in Livingston on B Street. Drove through it the other day. It looks beautiful. And we just got funding to actually do a full scope extensive rehab of the interiors of those units. So we'll be replacing roofs and HVAC units and cabinets and everything, just so that we can extend that community another 20 or 30 years and offer that as high quality affordable housing. So we are here before you this evening requesting the allocation of your PLHA funding. Your application was submitted under the activity of providing funding for either preservation or new construction of rental rehab housing. So it was presented to the state and approved for this use. I believe we're only requesting the allocation of the first 3 years, but we would appreciate the opportunity to use all 5 years of the allocation. You will be eligible to apply for year 4, probably around August of this year, with awards in February of next year, and then the same cycle next year for your 5th year allocation. We are actively working on a housing and community development super notice of funding availability, super NOFA application. It rolls up 5 funding programs within the state of California in one application. And so we will be applying for infill infrastructure grant funding because we will be building part of a road and then potentially undergrounding part of the canal in conjunction with the health clinic. And then we will also be pursuing some Joe Cerna Jr. Farm Worker Housing Funds so that some of the units can be made available for households who work in agricultural related jobs. And with that, that is the end of my report, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Council, any questions, comments? Well, I do just want to add, that I do appreciate the partnership, and I think it's anytime that we have partnerships with, especially that has to do with supporting housing in our community is always great, especially looking back at the good work that you guys been doing with Casitas del Sol. It's always kept up. Always looking great, so it's, and that's what we want to see, good partnerships that continue on even throughout the years, not just the first couple of years, and, then things change throughout time, but thank you for that, the work that you guys do on your end, and for keeping us in the loop when things come up that need to be done, and just, being able to provide some reminders sometimes, because we do need those reminders at times. Questions, comments before I go out for public comment? So let me go out to for public comment. Is there any public comment on the phone? Coming back to the chamber, any public comment in the chamber in regards to this item? Okay, bringing it back to our dais. Questions, comments, suggestions, recommendations, motions?
Just to add to your comment, Mr. Mayor, is Self-Help has done some good projects in the city, because Casitas del Sol is not the only one. There's some single-family residential that was done on the other side of town some years ago. And if you look at them, they did a really nice job. A lot of people that couldn't really be homeowners are homeowners. And here in Livingston, it's like anywhere in California now, we have hardworking families, but no matter how hard they work, when our average price of a home is between 4 to 6, it's difficult for some members of for the family to even have housing, and so I highly recommend that we, depending on the council, that we try to partner up and move the project forward.
Okay, so what is your wish? I'll go ahead
I
and.
say thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I really appreciate how the partnership that you have with the Livingston Health Clinic, and that you've also stated that you have partnerships in the educational, you want to bring on-site child after-school programs involving STEM programs. So it's good work. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Motion by Mayor Moran and second by Mayor Pro Tem Samra. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Roth,
Yes.
Councilmember Mann,
Yes.
Councilmember Soto,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra,
Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we move to item number 10. Consider and discuss the City of Livingston City Council's option for filling the city clerk position vacated by Leticia Vasquez Zurita and take action related to filling the vacancy.
Thank you, Mayor. On June 8th, 2023, the city clerk, Leticia Vasquez Zurita, resigned her position. Effective that date, the city has a vacancy in the city clerk position. Pursuant to Government Code Section 36512, the city must either declare a vacancy or call a special election for the city clerk position within 60 days of the vacancy. That gives the city until August 7th to appoint or call a special election. This is a special circumstance because generally a special election must be held within 114 days of the next general election, which would be in November of this year. August 7th is too long and will not meet that time frame. And so in order to have a special election as soon as possible, the city would have to call a special election no later than I think it's July. It's like the third week of July. That's a really tight time frame. Additionally, the special election will cost between approximately $53,000, or $15,000 if it's held during the primary election on March 4th. That would leave the city without a city clerk for approximately 9 months. In the alternative, the city may appoint a city clerk. There is no specified process in the code or city policy of how to appoint the position, but past practice has been to put out an application to the residents of the city of Livingston, have them come to a meeting and answer questions by the council and propose themselves as for the position, and then the council selects that person at that meeting or at a future meeting if they need additional time. So today we're asking the council to decide whether to do an appointment process or call a special election. If it is going to be an appointment process, to choose the process by which the council wants to appoint, whether it's the past practice or a different option, which can be up for discussion. If the city goes with a special election, then we need a decision on whether that special election would be called for the November election, or if the city needs more time, and in which case we'd have to call a special meeting in order to get that done.
All right, council, any questions?
Yes, I do. I was looking at the so-called job description. I'm somewhat concerned This looks like a job description you would have for a regular employee, not an elected position. I mean, explain this to me, supervisor, city council, am I reading this right? City council supervisors of another elected office? I'm not sure how that can be done. Can somebody clarify that? I thought this was the voters were the supervisors.
So the city clerk is elected by the voters, but all work delegated to the city clerk is done through the city council.
But it says it was created in 10/13/2020. I'm trying to understand, and I'm not gonna support it tonight. Any changes we made, how come it doesn't go to the voters? This is a position put in by the voters. Shouldn't the voters have a change and when we change rules to say that perform a related duties as assigned? We're gonna ask the city clerk to mop the floors? I mean, I think it's up to the voters. I need to get a little more of a clarification of when the original description that was there before the 10/13/2020 and what changes were made and how. And I'd like to know some sort of state code says, or whatever it is, that we can change what the elected officials do without going to the voters. I just feel that I just need to get more clarification on this, to how this can be changed by the city council for people that are responsible to the voters, not to us. We are not their bosses. The voters are their bosses.
So just as a point of clarification, the essential duties and responsibilities that are listed in this job description are the duties and responsibilities that are required of the city clerk under the government code. It doesn't list the specific government code section in here. It is, I mean, this job description can certainly be revised, but these are duties and responsibilities that are implemented by the government code.
Yeah, I mean, it says, possession of valid California. Where do we require that the city clerk has to drive anywhere? Unless it's a city-owned vehicle that they have to drive in the performance of their job duties. I'm just kind of confused because it seems like the city clerk has more requirements than the city council. Is the city council required to have a driver's license? I just need to see before this thing was created, what we had and this one, what the difference was. Because this says 10/13/2020, I need to see what it was there prior to this.
So it is my understanding that, and then again, it's just, I think there's been, my understanding is that some of this language comes, and then again, I'm not the expert here, some of this language comes and is based on current municipal code, an ordinance or a code that was approved by a city council, who knows when.
It says 10/13/2020.
Well, I believe, and then maybe that was when it was revised, when that form was revised. I don't believe it was something that was approved by council, that came before the council and approved by order of resolution or action by council. But then again, there's a lot of questions because in the past, as far as I know, what's on that description was not required of previous elected either the treasurer or the elected city clerk, whether it is something that needs to be looked at and look at what's in current code and be redone or reworded or rescinded. But I agree. I think there's a lot of questions.
I'm sorry, but I need to see it. Physical demands. Dexterity of hands and fingers to operate a computer keyboard. To me, really, honestly, who in the hell put this thing in there? If somebody can't operate a keyboard because they're handicapped or something, they're not eligible to run? So a blind person can't run for this office? I mean, up to me, this is ridiculous. I want to see the original one. I don't agree with these changes. I'm sorry. But you guys can vote any way you want, but I'm going to say hell no. Thank you.
So what I'm understanding is what legal had already stated is that the provisions under the essential duties and responsibilities is government code. So these functions here require some of that dexterity to provide minutes. However, those minutes weren't even being brought to us. Even if this document was created 10/13/2020, approved, I don't know who was approved by, so that's legitimate, okay? Because I don't remember seeing this. However, our elected, Leticia, did say she understood her job duties as they were presented to her. She had stated that she knows her responsibilities. She took an oath for this city, for our voters. Did she uphold her part of the job as an elected? We already heard at the beginning citizen comments. She didn't do her job. And us on the dais, previous council, and this council can note that we haven't had minutes already for the past 4 months. She resigned at the beginning of June. And to piggyback off what Jose said earlier, when we don't do our job as expected when we should, it just gets piled up. Well, we've seen some of these agenda packets where we've had stacks of minutes, where someone has had to sit there and do these minutes when we already have an elected that was required to do this under these essential duties and responsibilities under the government code. So I think what the lady had stated as well is that, hey, if she wasn't doing the job for the city of Livingston as an elected, why did we pay her? She gets a stipend every month to do this job. She got paid to do this, just as we get paid to be here on the dais. Letty came to many of our council functions and didn't present us with minutes that our public and our community deserves as part of her job duties. So whenever this was created, she went into this with a full understanding that as a city clerk, that she had responsibilities to the city of Livingston, not to us as a council. Great, it would have been good to have some minutes provided to us, but we didn't. I'm still talking.
Sure.
So to that point, she did go into the job understanding, because she said it herself, she knew her responsibilities going in, and that if council wanted her to do more, that we would have to pay her. We were paying her. The city of Livingston paid her a monthly stipend to not do her job. So I just want to clarify that. But she was here at many city council meetings. She even headed a failed recall that cost the city nearly $70,000. And now we have to go before the people and decide how we're going to select our next person to meet this criteria.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, the way I read this is like a regular job description. It says, no, hold on, I didn't interrupt. It says essential duties and responsibilities. So the way I read it, if we're supposed to be the supervisors, which I disagree with, anybody that's going to run for office has to demonstrate that they have these capabilities before they can file. So they have to come over here, get on a computer, show us they can type and take minutes, then they can run for office. That doesn't seem right. We don't have that ability. We don't have that right. I'm sorry, but we should not have to have, council is not a direct supervisor. We have two people that we supervise, city manager and the city attorney. We do not, I repeat, we do not supervise anybody else. Now, if somebody as a city clerk or a city treasurer or a city council member fails to fulfill their responsibility, then the voters can do what they want to do as far as forcing a recall or whatever it needs. We, the council, can't be doing this. I'm sorry. but this is just plain wrong. We do not, it may be in the code, but I don't know when she was elected.
2020.
This was created before she was elected? But when was it approved? Who approved it?
It was approved here.
By who?
I don't know.
So I just want to clarify that this job description is just a suggestion to be attached to the application, is actually not before anybody to approve, and it is not a part of the approval of this item, except that the council can decide to issue tell staff to issue the application without the job description. Today, what we're asking for is either to call a special election
I
or
find it very troubling when one elected official has an ability to override another elected official. It is up to the voters. This needs to be clarified before I can approve it. I'm sorry.
We're not overriding.
Yes, we are.
we're not approving,
No.
this job description is not up for approval. That is not part of what we're doing here.
No, but anybody that applies would have to meet these conditions.
No, the council can direct staff to issue the application without the job description. This job description is not part of this item.
So-
It's not part of the approval.
So we can mandate that they do certain duties? No, we can't. If a city clerk wants to do minutes, he or she can do minutes. Prior to whatever this happened, and I don't know what the hell's going on, we had many city clerks. We've had one city clerk that was for 25 years. I don't remember one moment of, other than coming to the council meetings, saying, okay, I don't remember them taking minutes, I don't remember doing anything other than swearing people in, signing some paperwork. And then even the prior city clerk to this didn't have to do it. And all of a sudden, for whatever reason, we pick on this city clerk, and I don't know why. This is just plain wrong. I'm not gonna let one elected body harass and oversee another elected body. I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna approve this. And I highly encourage everybody to get a clarification before we do this. Thank you. Otherwise, we don't need city clerks, we don't need anybody, and this just should have gone to the voters for any changes. Thank you.
Council, any additional comments, questions?
Gopal,
Go
what
ahead.
is your expectation of a city clerk? Just because prior practice had them do nothing but be elected by the voters, I don't think that's fair either.
I agree. However, we also can't intimidate, harass, or whatever because we don't politically align with an elected official either. That is also plain wrong. And that's exactly what this is, and I'm sorry.
If I might make a suggestion if we removed the job description and included a copy of the government code, which has the requirements of a city clerk.
Bring it back.
So I see a couple of things. One, we have we have a very outdated either code or ordinance. Something was approved a long time ago. There were things that were not expected for a long time. And, so that tells me that we have to look at what's currently in city code, and it has to be addressed to prevent this from happening in the future. So, but then again, if we are currently expecting something from someone, then somebody's going to come back later and say, well, how come you're expecting this from one person, but now you're not expecting this from another person? So I see this as, but then again, we're short on time because by state law, we have to appoint someone by a certain date, or we have to run a special election by a certain date. So I guess we have, I don't know, we have work to do.
There's four of you besides me.
Well, I mean, it's, so I'm going to take it out for public comment. Is there any public comment on the phone in regards to this item? Hearing none, bringing it to the chambers. Any public comment in the chamber? Bringing it back to the dais. So, this is a consideration and discussion item. Council? Legal?
I'll just reiterate the schedule because a lot has happened since I did the report. If you don't call a special election by July 16th, so the next regular meeting's on July 18th, which is when we could bring this back. If we don't call a special election by then there will not be an election until March of next year. It won't be able to get on for the November election this year. If you do not choose to appoint until the next meeting on July 18th or decide on a process, you will have 19 days for the process to occur. I believe there is, the first meeting in August does fall prior to the 7th, so you would have applications be distributed, and then within 2 weeks, you would have to make an appointment and evaluate those applications.
Okay, in all situations, so we put this out with the current application that we use for appointing members of the community. So this is, I've seen this application before for Planning Commission, for Rec, and then our most recent was JT Mann. This application has been filled out and it has many of these abilities to tell us about yourself. That's basically part of a job description type. Tell us why you want this job and what you can do to fulfill this obligation to the city. Doing this by appointment, I think that has been the past practice. Even though past practice for a city clerk has been do nothing, which is what we've gotten, I don't think that's fair to our residents, because it is an elected position, and I still held to the fact that, this is an elected position. We should have the next person in line. She ran uncontested, so there is nobody else. What if we put this out for persons to apply and we don't get one?
All right, if you don't get anyone and fill the appointment within the 60 days, then you must call a special election.
How soon is that position that we created within the budget coming up?
Yeah, so that one is similar to the other positions where there's no job description, so we would need to go through and identify the job description, meet and confer with the appropriate bargaining group to ensure that they were okay with it, and then bring it to council for adoption. So I would say that it's probably 6 months out.
So as a council, if there are concerns in regards to this job description, which has been made available to us for both elected, other than us, the city clerk and the city treasurer, and I do see that one has fulfilled their part of tonight. We had a report. However, with this position, what is it as a council? What are we looking for in a city clerk so that we can get that at least straight? Because it's already in the government code, the essential duties and responsibilities, which is take and transcribe official minutes at city council meetings, follow council meetings, attest, publish, and post ordinances and resolutions, assist with municipal elections and certify the official results to the city council, administer the Public Records Act, Political Reform Act, the Brown Act for the city, administer the oath of office to city personnel, city council, boards, and commission members. So those right there are the basis of those duties. What else are we expecting as a city moving forward if we're going to appoint somebody?
So just to be clear, if the city wants to, the city is bound by the government code responsibilities, and the city can only, the authority that the city council has to make changes to those responsibilities is to delegate certain responsibilities to staff or others within the city, but you cannot change or add to the responsibilities of the city clerk outside of the bounds of the government code.
So Mayor, if I could add something, I think these are all fundamental questions that I think many other cities have grappled with. And I don't know what I'm going to say is necessarily going to provide a solution here, but some of these same questions have been asked by other cities across the state. And so the fundamental question is really, is someone in the community suited to handle the city clerk role? And if you look at how the city clerk function has evolved over the course of 50 years, this is now a full-time profession in many cities. It's a career pathway, it's a career track. What a lot of agencies, not just cities, but county clerks, agencies, special districts, have gone the way of having an appointed professional staff member that does this. Because if you look at some of the requirements that we're forced to do, whether that be retention schedules, whether that be PRAs, typically that are handled in the city clerk's office, it's very much a profession in terms of staying up to date with trainings, staying up to date with the latest information, latest laws. So one of the challenges that I hear here is that a member of the public may not have the time to be able to devote to do this because of the career pathway that they have outside of being an elected city clerk. I think it's similar to some of the challenges that exist when you have council members that have full-time jobs and then have to take time off work to make meetings work during the day. So with that being said, a lot of cities have gone the way of having the voters weigh in on whether the position should continue being an elected position or whether maybe the public interest is better suited by having a full-time staff member that takes on the responsibilities of this role. And I think the policy issue, as I see it here, has been because of maybe the different requirements or the different desires of previous city clerks that has largely fallen on the responsibility of staff to pick that up without grappling with that fundamental question about whether the public interest is better served with an appointed staff member that is essentially either reporting directly to the city council or in other situations where that staff member reports directly to the city council. And that does require the vote of the voters to weigh in on that, but I think that really goes to, I think, the points that Mayor Pro Tem are making, but then also the points that Councilmember Soto is making about, these discrepancies with the requirements of responsibilities of the city clerk. And, certainly that function and that role needs to be fulfilled because we need minutes from council meetings. But right now, the job descriptions as they're structured with our existing staff members have it so that current staff members don't transcribe minutes of the city council meetings because that is the function of the city clerk's role per the government code. So I think that's a policy level question that isn't necessarily for the council to weigh in on or provide direction tonight, but I think everybody is providing comments that really revolve around that policy level issue that's required to have the members of the community weigh in on that fundamental question.
So something that I also want to add, prior to a few years ago, I had no understanding of the exact requirements or expectations of a city clerk or a city treasurer in the city of Livingston. And things have changed just overnight, but also it is something that is registered in city code. So I think there's a couple of things here. One, do we really, or do we need to have an elected position for city clerk and city treasurer, and what the expectations are? And then if those expectations that we currently have that were approved, I don't know how long ago, are they to be met? If not, those expectations need to be changed. Because we cannot be going, no council should be going back and forth. It's like, well, this one yes, that one no, and yes, so the expectation should be the same all throughout 2 years from now, 4 years from now, and 20 years from now, unless that code is changed by a city council, and it should be followed. There's things that I like, there's things that I don't like, but if it's code, if it's an ordinance, it should be followed. If it needs to be brought back to council, maybe that is something that needs to be brought to us and review and revise and either rescind or increase or expand or reduce, whatever it is, and then just kind of comparing it to the city council or position or the mayor, you're like, I don't think I've seen a description. Is there one? What are the expectations, And then again, the expectations are such, and the only ones that can, actually, I just had another meeting this morning, just earlier today, and said, well, the expectations are such that the only ones that can make that change are the residents, but no one, not even us, could. Actually, we as members of the city council, whether we are council or a mayor, we have no authority or power over another elected official to do or not do. That is, once you are elected, the only ones that can, that have something that could be done is by the residents, So there's a lot of work to be done. I see that, because if this had been fixed a long time ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation, one way or the other. But right now, we do have one responsibility before us, and unless any one of us can go and change the law statewide and say, then you guys can have more time, then by all means. But right now, as members of the city council, do we want to follow the law or not? We have a certain amount of time where we got to do something, whether we like it or not. I don't like it, but I don't, unless somebody comes up with another option, I'll be willing to entertain that other option. Like I say, just another thing that we have to look at and change, improve, rescind, expand, whatever it might be. But what I want to ask this council is to stay focused on what our responsibility is right now. Are there changes that need to be done? Maybe. Can they be done overnight? No. What are the options? So we have a problem. What is the solution? Can we have more problems, but can we fix that other problem first before we fix this problem? Probably not, because we have a deadline. So I don't know. Unless you guys come up with a better idea, we have a deadline to meet, whether I like it or not. Council, any more questions, comments?
I heard you say that, changes don't happen overnight, but earlier in your discussion, you said, these changes, it just came and it happened overnight. So apparently changes do appear before us overnight when we, and it's further exacerbated by the fact that we have a position that is become vacant. So moving forward, I think that our best bet is to put this out and members of the community apply. And then moving forward, I know that, I want to say about 3 months ago, I had brought it as a question, as do we need these elected positions? And what can we do so that we don't have to always have this on the ballot? And I think Christina had answered to that, but that is in our future. But again, we still have to go through those processes of deciding whether or not we want those elected positions, even though it's in our code. But the duties under the government code are there. So that would be my reason to say, hey, when we do get a city clerk, or appoint a city clerk, or do a special election, those are the expectations under the government code.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Now, I've heard everyone talk tonight, and, I've heard the arguments and everything. But right now, it does come down to time. We are on a time crunch. We are going to agree or disagree sometimes on this dais. But we are running out of time. So I am going to, I don't know, I got a little bit more to think about, but I think we need to do something, but it's got to be done soon. Next meeting is going to be too late, correct, Mrs. Attorney?
It puts you under a serious time constraint as far as appointment goes, and it is too late in order to hold an election this November.
And that's another thing. We have another special election. I think we need to let the community talk, and I think we need to put this out to the public. And so, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to put this out to public for appointment.
Council, any more questions, comments, suggestions?
Mayor,
Go ahead.
thank you. I did, as Councilmember Roth had mentioned, I also have listened to everybody weigh in. And belittling and berating a citizen is not a part of our job description here. I want to formally thank Leticia for any and all work that she did do for the city of Livingston and its citizens. Appreciate your efforts. As far as the matter at hand here, if we did move forward with an application process and left this job description off of that, could we then revisit this at a later time and still kind of work around the time constraints that we're limited by?
As far as revisiting what the job requirements are?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, absolutely. You can formulate any process for appointment that you want right now. It can include this application, it can make revisions to this application, and then as far as what the city's policy is on how it is going to make known what the requirements of the city clerk position are, you can do that at any time. And my recommendation would be the government code lists it out, but your municipal code doesn't actually have anything in it right now that says what the city clerk's job duties are and what the expectation is. And so that is something that can be done separately from this appointment special election process.
So let me see if I can understand this correctly. I think I'm hearing two different things. So you're saying that we have this in our government code, but we don't have it in municipal code.
Yes.
Okay, but you also earlier said, or you suggested that we could include what's currently described in government code as part of the requirements, because then I think it wouldn't be fair that to go back and say, well, now we're not requiring there's all of this, but before we were, wouldn't that be opening a door to potential litigation and coming back and say, well, that's discrimination because this is what was expected of me and I was told to do this, and now for the new person, you guys are considering, whoever that might be, now you're not.
Well, so just to be clear, if the city council were to approve an ordinance that in any way delineated from the government code, that ordinance would not be able to be implemented until after the next election cycle. So this person that you're appointing, the state law is the only thing that is valid at this point, and this essential duties and responsibilities in this job description just reiterate what that state law is. And so it's just as easy to take this out, put the government code section in so that whoever's filling out the application does understand what the government code requires them to do as part of their elected position. And then if the council wants to revisit the idea of either putting a measure out so the voters can decide if it's going to be an elected or appointed position in the future, or reviewing an ordinance that delegates some of those duties to the deputy city clerk in-house, so that it doesn't put such a burden on the elected city clerk, then any of that would not be implemented until after the next election cycle, even if approved now.
There's a lot of information. Now I'm even a little bit more confused, but I know that we're canceling our 4th of July meeting, and our next already schedule is on the 18th. If we need to, could we consider a meeting either the 5th, which is the Wednesday, the day after 4th of July, and revisit this item? And would that will still allow us enough time to accomplish and stay within the requirement?
I mean, yes, it just gives less time for applicants to apply and less time, it really just gives less time for applicants to apply. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is you can choose the time frame that you'd like. So you can do it on the 18th and have, I think that's about 10 days. When is the next? The first meeting
The first.
in August is?
August the 1st, exactly 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
2 weeks later.
So, I mean, yeah, if you waited till the 18th, then it gives you,
2 weeks, and then we can still.
gives applicants a little, well, less than 2 weeks
Yeah.
because of the agenda notice.
Yeah.
So if you do it on the 5th, then yeah, you're giving more, like 3 to 4 weeks.
So we already approved to cancel our meeting for the 4th, which states that if, what it says, if the city council does not approve the resolution canceling the 4th of July regularly
We-
scheduled city meeting, a
That's an
special
option.
meeting would
We
be
don't-
held. but
we don't
we
have
already
to.
did.
We don't have to have it on the 5th automatically. It's an option to have it on the 5th if we need to, if we choose to.
I apologize, I thought you were setting a date for us.
No, it was just,
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
yes.
to me, we know that even if you're elected, regardless of where you're at as a citizen, everybody has a right to freedom of speech or to stand up for recalls or whatever you want. If this person was not involved in the process, I doubt there would have been a pushback from the council with this individual. Everything would have been ignored. No worries. We didn't do it for. We know part of this is a political hit. And to me, we got to be cautious of that. It doesn't matter if one of us here is against the other person for recall, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. We should allow that person the freedom to express themselves in a public forum, whatever it is. And to me, I'm sorry, but if that person is sitting there, and we know who we're referring to, and saying, I agree or I disagree with the position the council has taken, elected official does not give that right away. It does not. You know? And let me we're saying somebody needs to take minutes. Did the city ever issue a computer to this city clerk? Was there any device given so they can do their job? I doubt if there's even a device given. We have access to those, but nothing was ever issued. So what tools did we provide for them to do the job? We didn't. We just want to do this because we're pissed off because that person was against us for something. That's all of this was. I don't see anybody raise concerns prior to this. Nobody raised a concern. Why all of a sudden with this person? Why? 35 years by one person, 8 years by another person, and even between, no one raised a concern.
So I just want to say that as an elected to another elected, I can voice my opinion on another elected. So with that being said, the reason why it's here before us now is because we have a vacancy to fill. In the 35 years and the 7 years that you mentioned, I don't think anybody had left those positions by way of resignation. But tonight we do. And so we have to find a solution on how to move forward with that. Those people weren't, from what I understand, weren't required to do anything but hold a title. Maybe they did come out and do some of the formal items like swear in a new council or whatever it was. I mean, those were before my time. But tonight we do have this before us and we have to find a way to move forward. Whether or not there's disagreements, personal, whatever that you had stated, but we've had to sit through tonight and listen to you swear on the dais. So whatever we go through, now that we're getting more clarity on how to move forward, that's the route that we need to take.
Yeah, but yes, we are entitled to our opinion, but we can't abuse our power. I haven't talked to Letty, but I'm sure if pressure wasn't being applied, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, or you were demanding that you do this, maybe that person wouldn't have done it. It's more of a harassment than anything else. If we were to do what we did with an elected official to a payrolled employee, you would see all kinds of lawsuits. This is nothing more than harassment, and I'm sorry, but I'm willing to wait till, if you want to hold a special meeting to July 5th to get some clarification, but I strongly ask my colleagues, do not go down this path of browbeating somebody because we disagree with them politically. I'm sorry, but this is nothing more than that. Thank you.
Not disagreeing, but because the people don't know what they don't know. The fact that we, as a council, know that these were the expectations of a city clerk and they weren't being met. So moving forward, we have to understand that if we decide on a special election or an appointment, there are some guides, and they need to be held accountable to. Nobody's harassing anybody.
I noticed you made a comment, and I apologize for personalizing this, but that person wasn't doing their job, but they're working on the recall. That tells me that it is nothing more than political.
It was an observation and a fact that because we expect these items to be brought before the council, meeting minutes, they weren't being given to us. So the utilization of time, again, you brought up a good point. We don't know how the resources were provided, but we were told that they knew the expectations of their job.
Well, if you won't change my mind, at least we can talk about it on July 5th if the council so chooses. Mr. Mayor, we do have the not yet former city clerk, still a current city clerk, because we haven't really accepted the resignation. You don't have to?
She resigned.
Okay. If you wish to hear, we can. I mean, that's the mayor's discretion.
Is there any public comment on the phone in regards to this item? Going back to the chamber, any public comment in the chamber?
Mayor, council members, Leticia Vasquez. I don't know what was said before I just got off work, and so I had the opportunity to hear I think the last 5 minutes of the conversation. So I just wanted to state if there's any questions, I can answer. Or I can share my experience coming into this role and how it went, because it seems that there are questions. And so I can provide any answers or just to share my experience, because I think that Councilmember Soto is speaking without really knowing the information that I was given when I came into this role. And I think that there are assumptions being made by our Councilmember Soto in regards to why I'm leaving the position or why I left the position and my roles in the position. So I am here to talk about it if there's time. If not, then I can come back at the next meeting and we can have a discussion. I have nothing to hide.
Council, any questions?
And you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but prior to your resignation and prior council, however, did you feel that you were being politically targeted?
Yes.
And was it because of the duties that you did were different or not to the same level the others did, or was it because, I mean, the prior city clerks didn't do anything extra, but no one criticized them. So did you feel that if you were not part of the recall, maybe you wouldn't have had the same concerns raised?
Yes, that's correct. I did my research before I ran for city clerk, and I contacted Tony Silva, the previous city clerk, for about 8 years. He was, I think, in the role for about 8 years. And what he shared with me was his experience, which it didn't match to my experience. I know that I came into pretty much a lot of meetings when I participated in meetings when they were online. Because of COVID, I have attended meetings and I knew exactly what I was signing when I went in there to sign documentation, because I kept myself informed and I participated in meetings, not only as a resident, but also to gather information before I signed any documentation that passed. And so I do know that Councilmember Soto is requesting or inquiring about my role more because she is upset that I was part of the recall. And it is personal because Councilmember Soto is not able to separate the roles that she has as a council member and the roles that she has as an individual in our city. And I think that she likes to blur those lines, and she likes to appoint or request for me as an elected official to hold an expectation that she does not meet. And so yes, it's personal, and yes, I think it came from her, because she is upset that I was part of the recall. And I can understand that, because I feel that, you know, her level of professionalism is not there, and she's not able to separate that. And so that's okay, but I made that decision knowing what was best for me. Of course, I'm not gonna share very personal information that not everybody needs to know, but that was a decision that was best for me at that moment.
And other than, what other decision did you weigh before you submitted your resignation? Was there any other contact by anybody and says you have to do this? Was there anything like that, or?
Yes. So our interim city manager, Mr. Lopez, did request to meet with me. he didn't request per se that I do certain things, but I did feel, because I do know that, Monica does have a lot on her plate. And when I was put in that position to say I can do, the question was, what more can you do? And I shared that I could do certain things. And so it felt that I was put in a position where I needed to do more. And we did have a discussion that there's an expectation of doing a role that requires for me to be actively busy here. It's an 8 to 5 job that I cannot accomplish because I have job to accomplish outside of this, and I get $93 a month. That's not feasible for me to sustain a family, right? And so we did have that conversation, and it felt that I don't know where it came from, right? I don't know if it was an expectation that it's something that he just wanted to ask, or if it came because somebody else was pressing on him to inquire about those things. Because Councilmember Soto has never asked to meet with me, has never asked to ask a question about my roles. And because of the way or the practices that she engages in the past, I can only assume that she's requesting those information or that information from our interim city manager, because she's unable to request those things from me.
So to clarify, this came about with our previous city manager, Vanessa Portillo. This is not something that I initiated.
Okay.
So your assumption is wrong. And the reason why I brought up the recall is because that cost us nearly $70,000 to do. Had it gone through, it would have cost that much money to do a special election. So we're looking at the same thing. If we don't meet a deadline, we're going to have to go through a process of a special election costing us maybe $16,000 or the $54,000. So that is the reason why I brought that up. And it was in some of the timeline during that time of the recall, we were not getting any minutes. They were being compiled and brought to us like in a stack of 10 or so. That may be an exaggeration, but we were not getting the work that was expected. And this was brought to me by the previous city manager, Vanessa Portillo. And she had said, this is part of an old municipal code that we have elected positions that the city really doesn't require at this capacity. I said, well, then why do we have it? Because it's on the ballot. Was the answer. That's where that came from.
So there's a lot of things here at play, and I'm not going to pinpoint everything because, as we all know, your role in making decisions that has cost our city more money than what you're worried about when it comes to the recall. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about my role. And if our previous interim city manager had a question or concern about my role, there was never a conversation. There was never, hey, let's meet up and discuss this because something is happening that we're not meeting what we need to meet. The only one that took that time to have that conversation with me was Mr. Lopez. So I'm not sure where that's coming from because I've never heard anything from our previous city manager.
And one of the greatest powers that the voter has is to say, I shouldn't have made this decision to put this person in office, regardless of the cost. And I'm not saying that we should, but taking that right from the voters for the sake of the cost is plain wrong. Yes, it could have cost, but voters have that right. The state went through and recalled the governor a few years back. It cost millions of dollars, but that was right by the Constitution given to the voters. And to say, well, it might have cost us, yeah, but that's the voters exercising their right. You know, we can't be, there's some costs that we have to absorb, and think about some of the cost that the city incurred based on some of the decisions the councils make. They're a lot more than $50,000, $60,000. Can somebody give me the numbers of how much that cost us? So let's not go to what the voters' right is. Let's hold ourselves accountable for the same thing. You know, I'm surprised. You know, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars based on decisions. And maybe if the recall was successful, some of those decisions wouldn't be made, and maybe it would have saved the city a lot more than $75,000. So, you know, we have to take for what is given. Hundreds and thousands of dollars cost us, but had $75,000 were spent or gone through to it, a new council, if it was given, would have had an idea of what the citizens want, and perhaps some of those things wouldn't happen. So let's not just always put it on the voters. Voters have that right.
If I may just clarify two things or give my opinion on two things. One is when
she does not have the 3-minute limit because I called for comment and suggestions, so that time limit is way because we're asking questions.
So two things. One is if there's going to be an appointed person, it is important to figure out the expectations because when one comes into a role and there's no clear expectations to what's expected of them, it's important to know. Also, I really highly doubt that you'll find somebody who's going to give a duty of an 8 to 5 job for $93 an hour. So that's another a month. So that's another thing that I suggest the council thinks. And also, from my understanding, you cannot take away the roles of elected positions such as the treasurer or the city clerk just because you chose to. That's something that has to go in and that the residents have to vote and decide on. So those are my only two things that I would like to share that I feel it's important based on my experience. And I can come back and share more if that needs to happen. I just wasn't aware that this was happening today and I was at work.
So, Mr. Mayor, I go back to a little more of a clarification because the way this is confused, we're confused. We don't know what the expectations of the new person. We put this out, somebody signs up and says, oh, no. That's not what we were talking about. It says any other duties assigned. We want you to mop the floors. You know, we need a little more clarification for people that are going to apply.
And then resources, right? So I was never giving a laptop. I was using, my own resources to draft minutes, my own Wi-Fi, my own paper, my own ink. So if there's expectations of the city clerk to accomplish certain tasks, that the city provides that to them, so they're not using their own resources to provide that or to do those roles or tasks that they're asked to do.
So a couple of things. One, there's a conversation that I was just recalling, and I do remember asking this question was like, what is the expectation of an elected city clerk? And I remember the response was at that time was as much as they want to do or as little as they want to do, because in the past, there's only so much that was expected of those positions. Mm-hmm. Things have changed because of different reasons. And at the same time, I do know for a fact that and hearing it from different people, not only from you, that you were willing, inquiring about the responsibilities, the expectations, and to the contrary, it wasn't so much as you knowingly not doing your responsibilities in certain expectations that were demanded of you even before you decided to run. So that I know as a fact. I do want to thank you for everything you have done during the performance of your role. You have done way more than many previous years, or at least from what I've seen and from what some of the records demonstrate. So, at this point, I think it's only fair that whoever comes into this position, it's held to the same expectations, because it wouldn't be fair, and there's something that I highly believe in, is what we do for one, we do for all, good or bad. And you know, whatever this council decides, hopefully has the same expectations, or unless those expectations change and once and for all, you know, information is not different depending on who it is. And, you know, we speak a lot of responsibilities because we're elected officials and this and that. I mean, I think there's more than enough records of not doing what elected officials are expected to do. And nothing was ever said, you know, even about people being up here on the dais. You know, whether it's history or not, I mean, it's a fact. And to pick and choose when and how and to who, it's just not, it's not best practice, it's not appropriate. But, you know, maybe we should all hold our own selves accountable for what we're supposed to do and follow the law to the T, you know, and not deviate. I think all of the residents have the same expectations from all of us, not just from people that are not sitting up here on the dais, you know, and we cannot just, we should not be able to pick and choose the things that we want to pick on when we first should make sure that we're doing what each one of us is expected to do by the residents. So, but council, anything else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Any more
Lady,
questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. Lady, I want to thank you for coming out here tonight. That takes a lot of courage, and thank you for explaining your duties and explaining the stipend you get. 8 hours, it's a long day. Using your own supplies, not having a laptop. It now makes sense, hearing more, you know. So yeah, I just thank you, and thank you for all you did.
Thank you.
Letty, I'd like to request, if you could please return, if we do have a special meeting, please return for any other questions or comments that you may have. Thank you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. I will. Thank you.
Any more questions, comments? Yes.
Mayor, if I could add just a couple of things. Part of the delicate conversation that I know I had with Letty, and I know our deputy city clerk was in the conversation as well, was you know, the organization was ripe with personnel issues when I came on board. And the responsibilities, because the expectation, I think, from the council was that the work get done. And so what I needed to be mindful about, and I think Letty will agree to this, that, you know, I didn't force. The moment that I heard that you didn't have the equipment or the tools, we placed an order because I was shocked that none of that had even been provided. And so we made an immediate order. We have the things now. But that's kind of the delicateness of some of the things that have just continued on for years and years and years. And so the balancing act that I had to do was knowing that there were potentially, I'm not going to say that there were, items with employees working out of class because they were taking additional responsibilities because they weren't necessarily stipulated in an ordinance. I needed to do my part to help protect the city. And so we did have, I thought, a pretty good collaborative conversation with Letty, and we talked about, hey, you know, is there anything that you can do? And we talked about potentially training that I know Monica had volunteered to assist, and I think Letty would say that, you know, I made myself available however I could, or my staff available however I could, to help facilitate that. And so I did want to make sure that, you know, I did have some conversations that I needed to be delicate about because of the nuances that we have here. And at the end of the day, I needed to do my part to help protect the city to any potential claims that might arise from employees down the road. So this was a very delicate item that has sensitivities all over it. And so I just wanted to make sure that the council and Letty, I know that we talked about briefly some of the sensitivities related to that, but I think those are also important to note because none of these conversations were essentially easy. They were all just very sensitive across the board, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any additional questions, comments, suggestions, recommendations?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to bring it back on the 5th. Talk about this again.
I will second that to bring it up on discussion on July 5th. We will have a meeting, special meeting or a regular meeting on July 5th.
So legal, this will be just to continue the item instead of making a motion?
Well, also, I think otherwise, like it was stated, if applicants don't have clear understanding of what's expected, then how are they supposed to apply? I think we need to have more of a clarification on what is expected. The way this reads, I'm sorry, this reads like a job that somebody applies for and shows their qualifications. I don't know, we need to be more clear, otherwise, if the next person, they can fall into the same thing.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, are you asking that if we do have, or when we have, if we continue this item, to make sure that we have in our staff reports or somewhere what it is current state law and what is on our municipal code, or?
There's nothing in the municipal code as far as expectations for the city clerk.
Yeah. This
So
one,
it is, if this comes back, what will be brought back is the government code.
So,
because
so this whole time,
I still need to see where
okay.
city council supervises the city clerk, an elected position. I'm sorry, I just don't see it. We can set other things, but we do not directly supervise another elected official.
So
Maybe I'm misreading it, and for that, I'll probably need another clarification as well.
So another thing, then I was under the wrong assumption. My understanding was, or maybe my interpretation was, that this was part of our municipal code. So you're saying that it's not?
No, it is not. There's nothing in the municipal code that defines the duties of a city clerk.
And that was precisely why I
So
questioned it.
that
We put a
changes a lot for me.
We put a seal on something that somebody arbitrarily put on there, and I don't even know if it got voted on, and all of a sudden, that's what we have to comply by? No, I don't see that.
Well, certainly if there was no approval of this, then it doesn't mean anything.
And that is precisely, it says created and approved. It was created on the 13th, approved on the 14th. I don't know if we had a council meeting to approve this.
I'm almost certain that this was not before the council.
Then the city manager, whoever made this, stepped out of bounds.
So, do we need a motion or? I know, but I just need to clarify. Do we need a motion to postpone, or do we just continue this item?
Yeah, it should be continued by motion. And so everyone knows, I will not be here on the 5th. I'm not available that week at all. So I can send someone else from my office, but it will not be me that is here for that meeting.
That would be truly appreciated. Even if that person phones it in, that's fine.
So, we have a first and a second. Roll call?
Roll call. Councilmember Roth?
Yes.
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Councilmember Soto?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Semmer?
Yes.
Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
All right, thank you. Next item, and the last one. Item number 11, resolution approving the restated joint powers agreement of the Merced County Association of Governments and authorize the city of Livingston mayor to sign the agreement.
So Mayor, this item has been discussed previously by the mayor and the council. There was some information that I did share, I believe, yesterday morning related to conversations that was had by the MCAG Governing Board of Directors. So this item is before the council tonight with the additional information that the council previously requested through MCAG. That information was sent via email, so this item is before the council tonight to weigh in on any potential action that the council may take on this item, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. So just to give a little history about this item, I was a council member last July when I became aware of this item. And it was not from one of our meetings, but it was from an MCAG meeting that I just happened to watch for fun. On my spare time, instead of watching TV, I just watch meetings. And then I became aware of this item, and I started to look into it and what it was, and it was the joint powers of authority agreement between the different agencies in Merced County, including 6 municipalities and the county of Merced. And what this is, it's an agreement that MCAG, which Livingston belongs to, had been working on this agreement for almost 2 years. For almost 2 years. And for almost 2 years, or for 2 years really, even until January, for 2 entire years or more, none of our representatives to MCAG, which we have a representative and an alternate, neither one of them brought a report back to the council to let the council know that there was work being done in regards to this agreement. In July or August of last year, I made the then city manager know about this agreement, and I think also legal, or at least I know that the city manager, and I did ask the previous city mayor, which was our representative at MCAG, about this JPA, and to put it on the agenda to be able to bring a report back to that council. That was never done. So for 2 years, there was no report, no official report being given to the City of Livingston City Council. Or maybe it was given individually, but I was never aware of it. So when we came on board after November or December, I brought this item back onto the agenda for this council to be able to become aware of it and have a better, or at least have an idea and an understanding what this JPA or this agreement was all about. There are some major changes that were done that were included in the new agreement, which was previously done or renewed every 10 years. And I think that it was very important. So actually this agreement was supposed to have been approved last October, November, but there were extensions being given because of cities like Livingston were not aware of it, and a council needed it to make a decision and approve or reject or make changes to the agreement. But this council did not, or the city of Livingston did not get a chance to really get to work on this agreement until after January of this year, barely 5 months ago. So now we run out of time. There were questions that this council had. There were questions that I did go back to MCAG and I did ask. I talked to everyone. I talked to legal, I talked to city manager, I actually talked to MCAG's CEO Stacy Guzman, which provided good information. And, I spoke, just to different people to have a better understanding about just everything, what the alternatives, the options that we as a city have. And so after I provided those questions to MCAG's legal person, they were able to provide additional information, which helped me have a better understanding about the process, which basically, now I understand that the city of Livingston really has no choice. We either agree with the JPA or we don't. That's it. We're not being forced. I understand that we are not being forced to participate, but we're also not being forced to not participate. Because what a JPA is, it's an option. You either want to be part of it or you don't. But the biggest mistake, and what has brought us to this situation now to where now we don't have an option, or very limited options, is because that information regarding this agreement was not brought to this council, to the city of Livingston for 2 years by our previous representatives, which was a big mistake. Now we're stuck. We either play or don't play. And I do believe that participating and being part of MCAG it's of value to our city. I do believe that there's good things that come out of it, because than not. But and it was just, from my point of view, very irresponsible from our previous representatives to not be able to bring that back to that council that was here 2 years ago or last year, and at least give that option to our council members to make a decision, are more educated and have more options. We did as best we could. I know that legal had a few meetings with the other representatives. There was a few things that were changed, some language and all that. But currently this JPA is for 30 years. It's not 10 years no more, it's 30 years. There were two items that me personally, I think would have suggested or at least worked on since 2 years ago. One of them was a term, and the other one was going away from an arbitrator to a mediator. We're a small community, but I think we're going to be, it could have a big impact. But at this point, it's somebody said, it's like, well, probably you guys are not too happy with it, but do the benefits outweigh the not good benefits? Well, I don't think I want to see it that way. I think, it's like saying, well, you have two candidates for one position, and they're both bad, and just select the least bad one, because those are the only options that you have. I should be able to have an opportunity to select from a good one or a bad one or whatever it is, but not choose the least damaging one. I think that is not the best way to make decisions, but that is what this is right now. That is the position that I feel we're in right now. It's being part of a bigger organization is helpful, and the answers to the questions were provided to everyone for prior review prior to today. I hope that you all had an opportunity to look at the questions and the answers. But I think that's the information that I can provide at this time. So I will entertain questions, comments, suggestions from the council.
Mr. Mayor, first of all, I'd like to thank you for your efforts in getting the information to us. I think I can only speak for myself, but others are free to weigh in. We understand and agree with your concerns, but we're also, like you said, kind of like if we don't agree, then a lot of things will go on, but without the city vote. And in the long run, not being able to go in there and guide regional projects or things that we need are important. Yes, we will have the board for the MCAG acts as a regional board, but unless you have a local representative raising the concerns for your district or for your city, they're not going to be clearly made aware of it. It becomes out of sight, out of mind type projects. Yeah, Westside is asking for this. Livingston's not, or somebody, and then, oh, fine, let's, the greasy wheel gets the grease, as it were, So I think we don't have a whole lot of choice. And I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Council, any additional comments, questions before I go out to public comment? Yes. So I'm going to go out to public comment right now in regards to this item. Is there any public comment on the phone? Hearing none, coming back to the chamber. Any public comment in the chamber in regards to this item? Seeing none, coming back to the dais. So just something that I also I do want to say, and I do want to recognize. I do value and appreciate, and I understand the effort, how much work has gone into this by members of the MCAG staff from the office and from the other directors. I think, I would be probably be in the same position as they are, feeling, sometimes upset at, what it seems like we are delaying the process. I would probably be upset too, because as a director or as a staff member, they invested their time to a full day or more to be able to come up with this JPA and this new version of it. And so it's like, if I was to attend a full day meeting, 8 hours away from my family, on a Saturday, I would be very upset if someone did not show up to that meeting, and later they want to make all kinds of changes. That's irresponsible. So I do understand, and I do appreciate, and I recognize everybody's work that was put into this agreement. But at the same time, I feel like we did the best that we could, being in the situation that we're in, trying to resolve problems that were created a long time ago. I always remember, in regards to this item, something that I heard before. It feels like invited to lunch, but the lunch was already served. It's just, this is what you get and that's it. We didn't get no input into like, what do you want for lunch? This is what it is and that's what you get. Take it or leave it. But it is what it is. But being in the situation and analyzing and understanding, I would I feel like I have no choice but to support this item personally.
Excuse me, Jose.
Yes.
So I keep hearing you say that the irresponsibility of the prior council. Were there any other representatives available to attend these meetings? Should the representative and the alternate not be there? Was the city manager also included on some overhead kind of discussion, or was our legal also appointed to go to some meetings that where the agreement was drafted? Did we have input in those kinds of way where somebody other than a council member were to be at an MCAG meeting? Were there other meetings where the JPA was brought up? Because I know that there is plenty of talk of it. But the agreement itself in a physical form coming before the council, we got it, like you said, this January.
So this JPA was available a long time ago. So whether or not other council members were available to attend, whether other staff members were available to attend, I don't know. All I know is from other directors. All I know from MCAG staff that there was where they go away for a day and work. There was a workshop for an entire day, and our representatives did not attend. That's all I know. Whether, so let's say that I'm the representative to MCAG. Let's say that I'm not able to attend. I'll let my alternate know. It's like, can you attend? If he says no, then I guess it would be our responsibility as the representatives to ask somebody else in the council or the city manager or legal, can you attend instead of us? But they're not going to attend if we don't let them know. So whoever those representatives were, it was also their responsibility. If I'm not going to be able to make that meeting and it's important, can somebody else make sure that attends that meeting because it's important and we want to get that information back? So I cannot confirm or deny whether that was, but at least I know that I've been part of this council or the previous council since 2020. And I never heard of it. And I heard of it by chance. And even when I brought it to the previous mayor's attention, and that was in July. From July to November, that item was never brought to the council on any agenda. So we lost a few months, even if it was August, we lost, at least 3 to 4 months opportunity to have this item before us or before the previous council, to at least read it or figure out what it was there. But you're right, this did not come to us until after January, when I attended my first meeting. Hopefully that answered your question.
So just to give you a little bit more background, because as soon as I was aware of it, I started attending the attorney sessions, and they were ready to present the agreement then to all of the councils, and that's when we stepped in and started making changes. And so that's why between November and January, nothing was brought, because we were now then reworking the agreement because in our opinion, to what was actually fair to the cities and to Livingston. And so there was a lag time between when I got involved and when it came to council, because there was work to be done and negotiation to be done on the agreement to make the terms more fair. But before we stepped in, they were ready to just start bringing it to councils.
Back in August or September, I believe, even me, not even being a member or the actual representative to MCAG, I provided comment to that item when it was being discussed by MCAG as part of public comment, not as an elected official, because I was not in that capacity. I was not the representative. I did provide comment, and that was probably in September or October at their meeting. So, and I'm assuming that that was because she became aware of it because I made the previous city manager aware of it, and then legal became aware of it, and then they got involved, but not because the representatives got involved. So we lost a lot of time, and this is where we're at now.
Mayor,
Yes.
I want to begin my statement by first thanking you again. I know you put in dozens of hours researching the JPA, and we really appreciate it. With that said, I was able to listen in and phone in to the last MCAG meeting, and I believe it was legal that had mentioned giving some context as to how they had reached this point. And she had mentioned that everybody that was at the table left unhappy, meaning everybody compromised, which is normally the definition of a good compromise, a good contract in that sense. I believe that, as everybody has mentioned, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's time that we do move on with this JPA, and does not take away from your efforts. I think we made a lot. We did have them take a second look at everything. That is for sure. That did happen. And whether or not we succeeded, that is besides the point, but we did give it a valiant effort. With all that said, I'm not sure if you're ready for a motion, but my recommendation is going to be to move on and move forward with this JPA.
I can agree with that as well. I'm glad that Livingston did get a chance to weigh in on that. And last year I was an alternate to MCAG. However, I don't believe that I was ever notified of a meeting that I would have had to attend in the absence of the rep. So just letting you know that I was the alternate to MCAG, but I didn't attend the meetings. If I attended a meeting, it was because as a citizen, just to have some of the experience of sitting there. I did attend one, but to say that that item was on the agenda, I'm not certain because it was a long time ago. But moving forward, I can say that the benefits of being part of having a voice at the table rather than just being served with something is highly valuable, that we are represented there. And the fact that y'all just went to Washington with MCAG as representatives, coming back with the knowledge and great feedback and having a voice at that level. At that level, we need that. We can't get that with not being at the table locally. So I think moving forward is our best bet.
Any additional questions? So we do have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Mann. I'm going to go ahead and second that. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Roth?
Yes.
Councilmember Mann?
Yes.
Councilmember Soto?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra?
Yes.
Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
All right, so next we have council direction on future agenda items. Council, anything? Yes.
Before, I had wanted to make that as part of my report or asked during city manager. There were two questions that I had. A citizen asked me to get further clarification, and that was in regard to the two-phase part of the sidewalk, widening or putting the projects in, and also a solution for the Fred Warden Basin, on how that, because one of the comments was made, and it was, Gopal had made had asked a question, and Anthony had commented, when we get the funding. So that's where that question came from, is what are we talking about the funding? How come we're not allocating it to the things that we need in our parks? So if that can get, follow up on that.
Are those
Two separate.
questions you want on the agenda, or questions to be answered separately? Like he can
Well, they're
send you an
two
email?
separate two separate,
No,
one is
but,
on the sidewalk and the other one is on Fred Warden Park.
yes, I understand that, but my question is, are you asking for those items to be agenda items, or are you asking for those items to be responded to you later on a regular email response to you?
No, they don't necessarily, because they've already been put into the budget, but an email would suffice,
Okay.
just as long as I get clarification, that way I can share it.
Anything else?
I had spoke earlier with the city manager, and I don't know if that would, something that would have to be discussed amongst the council, I'm not sure, but assistance with the veterans area over Memorial Park, sort of like the demarcation. I've brought this up years before, and also I just wanted to follow up too on the policy for the always towing.
Anything else? Anyone? That's it? Okay. So we are about to adjourn this meeting at 9:55. Good night, everyone.